Well, hello and welcome to another V's Cards video. My name is Veronika Cuic and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Australia. And in this short video, I'm going to show you how to make two super simple cards and we'll step them each up slightly. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. Let's take a quick look at the simple products we'll be using for the very first card. I'll have two product lists in the description below. One of the purposes of this video is to show off the versatility of the Cake Fancy stamp set by offering you several suggestions on how you can craft an easy card and even step it up. First up, I'm doing a zip card, stamp, ink and paper, and later I'll show you how to step it up to make it a bit more fancier. I'm using a sentiment from a retired stamp set. You can use what you already have at home or check out the selection of various different stamp sets on my website, and I'll have the link in the description below. Thanks so much for shopping with me. When I'm trying to get it perfect and layering each piece, I like to stand up and have my head over the image so that I'm lining up level with each piece. So far I've stamped the sentiment and the cake holder, then I've slowly one by one added the 3 tiers to the cake, or the 3 layers of the cake. Finally I'm building up the top part by adding some hearts. I did play around with different versions of how I'd want the front to look like, and I'll show you a picture of that in a second. But I'm pretty happy with the idea of having 2 hearts in the centre sticking out on top. Want to give it a subtle glitter? Step it up by adding some Wink of Stella. When you're in a hurry but you don't feel like heat embossing, you can simply brush some Wink of Stella to give your card a tiny sparkle. But the next step would be to actually heat emboss. So if you do have a bit of time on your hands and you have some clear heat embossing powder, why not go that extra step further? Rather than using Wink of Stella, go ahead and give it some serious shine by adding clear embossing powder. And that's what I'm doing here now. I'm going to re-stamp on the cake holder and the heart. They need to be cleaned off first, and then I'm going to use Versamark ink and stamp over. Then I'll add the clear embossing powder to the cardstock, brush off any excess and use the heat tool. We're almost at the halfway mark of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please take a moment to like it and comment in the comments section. I'd love to hear from you. Also, I invite you to subscribe to this channel if you're not yet a subscriber. Thank you so much. While the Wink of Stella is very difficult to show up on video, certainly the clear embossing powder should come through nicely. If you wanted to intensify the Wink of Stella look, you could put some in a small spray bottle and then add some rubbing alcohol and spray away for as much as you like. Obviously, the more you spray, the more intensified the sparkles will be. This is great if you don't want to focus on one particular part of an image, but rather give the whole card front a spray. Because the Cake Fancy stamp set has both images and sentiments, you probably don't need to look outside of the stamp set to create a birthday card. You can use the birthday wishes as a separate sentiment, or you can combine it with the other parts, such as time for birthday wishes. You could even match it up with time for cake or your special day. So have a play and experiment with all the different ways you can use a stamp set. Here's a tip about stamping the berries on the cake. You'll need to stamp it twice for the full length of the cake. And what I've done originally is stamped once and then flipped it over and stamped it the other way. I decided I didn't like the effect of that, so I continued to stamp the same way twice because of that line on an angle to your left. As I'm playing around, I've decided to change things up by actually changing the colour from Melon Mumbo to berry burst and see what that looks like. You might notice the cake on the right, the original cake actually has a line of Malamumbo in between the two cake layers. I simply use stamping blends for this to correct the gap that I had. So if you don't put together the two cake layers close enough, you will get a white gap, and that was my way of fixing the problem. I've decided to be more experimental and go for a darker base colour. I'm using basic beige for the first time. I'm going to use exact same colours as I just finished using and see what that looks like. A quick note about using stamping blends on a light cardstock, and that is it could bleed on the other side. If that doesn't worry you, that's fine, but here is an example of it bleeding. There are some ways you can avoid that bleed being obvious, and one of those ways is to have another layer. So cutting out a smaller piece of cardstock and then stamping directly onto that, followed by adding some dimensionals onto the card that you've stamped, and then attaching that to the card base. So you'll get a bit of a pop, as well as if there is any bleeding, it's going to be covered. And there you have a subtle border margin around it. So we've covered quite a few versions of 2 simple cards and step-ups. This video is coming to an end. Thank you so much for watching. I hope I've inspired you. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care and happy crafting.